Our next presenter is Bud Kraus. He has been working with WordPress as an in-class and online instructor, site developer, and content creator for over 14 years. He has been hanging around the WordPress community even before his first talk at WordCamp NYC 2017 at the UN. He's a completely reformed web designer, no longer building WordPress sites, even if someone wants to overpay him, but they never do. Today, his focus is on creating WordPress content for WordPress businesses. To him, it's just another way to teach and have fun working with clients he loves and admires, his friends. So no matter the project, Bud works with clients the way that they want to work and not the other way around. Working as a content creator, Bud creates WordPress materials as educational articles for instructional videos for WordPress companies. Bud is very active and known in the WordPress community in and around New York City and northern New Jersey areas. And he has contributed to several lessons on learn.wordpress, as well as doing many webinars for the community. As he loves to say, WordPress software is pretty good, but the community is the absolute best. I have to agree. In 2022, he was featured as a person of WordPress on WordPress.org. And Bud's talk today is titled Using Low Vision as My Tool to Help Me Teach WordPress. With all of the talk about the importance of making WordPress accessible, how does someone with low vision teach and work with WordPress? Bud will share the tools and techniques he's been using for years as a WordPress instructor at Pratt Institute, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and elsewhere in New York City. He will demonstrate the operating system and WordPress adjustments he has needed to make it possible for one with low vision to be productive. And this talk is based on the article, or based on his article in Smashing Magazine on what it's like to have macular degeneration, using low vision as my tool to help me teach WordPress as well. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Help me welcome Bud Kraus. Hello. I think you're muted. Let me unmute you.
Oh, I'm muted?
There you go. Okay. I got you.
All right, now I can talk. So hello, everybody. Hello, Katie. Thank you for that introduction. It was unbelievable. Who wrote that?
I know I didn't write it, but it was an incredible introduction for sure.
You must have been talking about somebody else. I know you.
Yes. Do you have a slide deck to present?
I do.
Okay.
I have a PowerPoint slide deck. What do I do now? Just open it up?
I think you can share that here.
Yes. I was taught this yesterday. So bear with me. You know, I do have low vision. That wasn't just for, that's not just for publicity. It's true. So just bear with me here. I am going to, I'm sorry. Which one of these buttons? Here we go. Share screen. No, stop recording settings.
Yes, you should be able to click present. And then when you click on present, you should be able to click on share screen.
Yes, that would make sense. Present, right? And then I click on, I did this yesterday, show screen. Okay. And show screen. Okay. Do we see screen?
I don't see it yet on my end to bring on live. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys.
Let's see. Chat. Oh, I see. One more thing I have to do. Give me 1 second here. I don't know. Oh, they're asking me to, I see window. Here we go. Okay. We're getting there. Yeah, got it. Okay. Now tell me you see something.
I don't see anything on my end yet.
All right, hold on. I know what this is. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Now you will. All right.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to go ahead and bring that up into the presentation mode? And then
you can only try. Okay. All right.
Without further ado, I'll bring you on to the stage and I'll let you present.
Okay. Are you ready? I guess so. Sorry. All right. Hello, folks. Again, I'm Bud Kraus. I'm talking to you from Nutley, New Jersey, which is 12 miles west of New York City. It's finally a beautiful day here. Low humidity, nice temperature. Anyway, today's talk that I'm going to give you is on using low vision as my tool to help me teach people WordPress. Now, this is, if you were at WordCamp Europe, this will be sort of a little familiar. So that's me. I do create WordPress content for WordPress businesses, mostly for web hosts, but others as well. I am an instructor, so I do teach WordPress. And I'm a new podcaster. So I love podcasting. We'll get into that at the very end. And I'd like to talk about that. Okay. Now, let's get something out of the way right away, which is the things that I'm not going to talk about. So this is not one of those more techie talks on what's the right markup, ARIA, WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, compliance. That's not for this, all right? Plenty of other people can talk about that. I'm not an accessibility expert. That's not my thing. I'm an expert from the standpoint of me and my needs and what I see maybe others' needs, but from a technical standpoint, no. All right, and I do have age-related macular degeneration, although I got it when I was in my late 30s, so this is nothing new for me. And I'll talk a little bit about what that means to have macular degeneration, like right now. So here's a little warning for you. You might want to close your eyes when you're going to see the following. And so here's what it looks like. This is a really good representation. Macular degeneration is the destruction of central vision. So your peripheral vision remains intact. So you can see everything around you. I mean, peripherally. You just can't see straight ahead. Not necessarily that kind of definition, that is that roundness that you see. It can be that way. It's not that way really for me, but that's, gives you an idea. Here's another idea too. It's sort of like everything's kind of like, like blurry. This is more like me, how I see things. I think it's a pretty good representation. And then really severe cases, you get something like this. Fortunately, I don't have that. So you can see right off the bat, it presents differently for different people. Now, and sorry, I have to read this, so I will have to lean in and look at this a little bit. How do they test for macular degeneration? They do something called the Amsler grid. Maybe you know about this. Maybe you have parents or grandparents that know about this. And it's, if everything is good, all these lines are straight. Now, as I look at it right now, it is not so good. The lines are not straight, or maybe I'm not seeing them at all. And this is what I mean. So you could, as when they diagnose somebody will say, oh, it's like wavy, real wavy, like in the bottom left-hand side. Okay, we've got some bad news for you. Or it could look something like that. All right, now a little information, the AMD factoids, because you might say like, I've never really heard of this, or it's really rare. Well, you'll see. So there are two types. There's the dry and the wet, and the dry kind is a very slow degenerative process. The wet kind, what does it mean, wet? First of all, it means that there's leakage in their blood, actually, little tiny droplets of blood where they're not supposed to be, that is on or near your retina, or more specifically the fovea, which is the real center part of your vision inside the retina. And it's definitely the worst of the two. I happen to have, of course, the wet kind. And you can have a very severe or a very fast deterioration of your eyesight. Now, that's exactly what happened to me. In a very short, rapid period of time, I lost eyesight in one eye, and then 2 years later in another. So it does tend to happen for both eyes. And that interesting thing is, if you only have an eye condition, this is really true for any eye condition. If you only have it in one eye and you have a good eye, the good eye will mask and make up for what the bad eye can't do. That's really good. When you have an eye condition in both eyes, then you really have the condition. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah. People in the United States, about 20 million. So it's very prevalent. In fact, it is the leading cause of legal blindness in the United States. That's a lot, 20 million. Unfortunately, the vast majority of them have that dry kind where you don't have the leakage, and it goes very slow. In fact, people don't even really recognize it until for quite a while. And then worldwide, I know we're saying by 2040, 288 million people. So that's quite a bit, quite an increase. Now, what are the risk factors? Well, first of all, age. Well, not always. There happens to be, and they think in my case, I had a juvenile form of age-related macular degeneration because, I was pretty young when I was diagnosed. Females, more likely. Caucasians, more likely. Smoking, definitely a risk factor. Now, I was a smoker when I was younger, in my teens and 20s, and I always say if there's one thing I regret doing in my life, it certainly was that, and I think it was a contributing factor to me. Also, obesity, and finally, genetics. There's no question that in my case, it most likely is genetics. My mother had the condition, and so did my grandfather, who I never met. In those days, they would just say, "Grandpa has weak eyes." Well, now we know what it is. And when I say I see things in a different way, I am not kidding. So these are the four areas that I have issues with. Depth of field. I have two eyes that don't function together correctly. So everything appears pretty flat to me, which presents kinds of certain problems, especially walking down steps. That's a real big problem. If you ever meet me, you'll notice I hang on to steps or people or whatever. That is a really big problem. I tend to also curl my feet over the edges of steps when I can, so I can feel the edges. Color blindness. In my case, yes, you will, because, yeah, I definitely can mix up red and green. It's a reason why I don't drive anymore, because that's not a good idea to get those mixed up. Contrast, very much in my case, and also it seems to be in most people with this condition, have a real hard time with contrast, especially with just going out. Your eyes don't adapt fast enough between light or shadow and highlight, and it can be really tricky. And finally, the prism effect, which is, since I don't have two eyes working together, I'll have sort of like this split vision, as if you're sort of like looking through a prism, and they like two images that don't sync up. I think that's really sort of the best way to describe it. Okay, and how do I do this? You might wonder, how do I do what? Let's just find out. These three things. I use Zoom on a computer, I use audio, and I use touch. So what do I mean? Well, I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to do not a presentation like live. I am going to actually play this presentation. This is a pre-recorded, hopefully it'll work. Hopefully people are seeing this. And I am going to play this right now. I think it's about 8 or 9 minutes. And I do this for a reason to play it. What you'll see, I may interrupt and provide a little commentary. Let's go. Welcome to my world of settings and preference change. Geez, I hope everybody can hear this. I use Ventura on a Mac OS. It's the most recent version of Mac. And I'm going to take you through some of the highlights and the key settings that I use for my computer. Now, keep in mind, everybody with some kind of impairment or disability will be using different settings. This is very idiosyncratic just for me. And that's the key, is that there are plenty of choices that are built into the operating system for a user to have at their disposal, and here are mine. So the first thing I'm going to show you is display right over here. And this is the display driver. I use a pretty low resolution, 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. And if I wanted to change the display, I would just click on that. You can see the Mac OS has quite a few different display drivers, which is good. Now, the bad thing is, I believe it's with this operating system, they no longer make it easy for you to change the brightness of your screen. If I go over here, you'll see the display brightness. You can't do it through the operating system anymore. You have to do it through the monitor itself. I don't like it. Now, if I was using a Mac monitor, no problem. But what Apple is saying is, we no longer give you the ability to change the brightness because there's so many different monitors out there. Do it through your monitor settings, which I'm not going to show you, but that's exactly what I did. And also we have accessibility settings. I think some of these settings are so important They shouldn't even put it into accessibility. They just put it into all these other options over here. That's just my editorial comment. And I don't use everything. So, for example, I don't use VoiceOver, a way of listening to actions and functions taking place on the computer. No, I don't use that. I certainly use Zoom. And so the way I have this set is when I press the Command key and I scroll like this with my mouse, I can see this much better. I can really zoom in, and sometimes I go crazy and zoom all the way in. And you get this effect of going back and forth a lot, but at least I get the job done. Also, there is a display area in accessibility. This is different than the display driver for the monitor. And let's just take a look over here. I'm going to actually zoom in and show you how we do this. If I wanted to invert the colors, now a lot of people like this. It's what I call the ultimate in dark mode, but I don't. But many people, as I said, who have vision impairments will definitely use this reverse mode. Let's skip down a little bit over here and look at increased contrast. Well, I definitely want high contrast because it just makes things easier. If I were to turn this off, yeah, you can see. It makes it hard for me to see. So I'm going with that. Reduce transparency. Let's go down to over here, and I have display contrast. Yeah, very important. Again, contrast is a big deal. You can see it gets really washed out, at least for me. I pushed it way up over here. Now it's funny they call this normal, huh? So if I went all the way out to here, let's see what we have. Well, that's a little bit too hard for me to see. So it's just easier if I move it back to right about where it was like this. That's fine. If I scroll down a little bit more, the pointer, that is this over here, I can adjust that too. You can see I pushed it all the way up to the largest possible size. Now I can change that, of course, to make it smaller. And it really makes it hard for me to find where the pointer is. And I just found out a little bit ago that you can change the color of the pointer. That's interesting. Now, I don't use this colored filters option over here, so I'm going to bypass that. Let's go over here and look at spoken content. Click on that over here. Now, this one I use all the time. So in addition to zooming, the other way that I understand content is to use this control right over here. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to move this out over here. And I've got this text document over here that I'm writing for a post on my website about being chosen to speak at WordCamp Europe. Now, let me just show you this right over here. You can listen to this. And I'm going to select these 3 paragraphs. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, the font's much bigger than it would normally be. And it makes it easier for me to see. And what I'll do is just press Command and B.
A couple of years ago, I was watching a live stream from Paris. It was WordCamp Europe 2017, or maybe it was WordCamp 2018 from Belgrade, or maybe WCEU coming from Berlin. Looking back, it doesn't really matter. All I thought was, wouldn't it be cool to go to WordCamp Europe one day?
Now, when I do that, you can see the visual control goes away, so I can't pause it anymore, and it just stops, which is a little bit inconvenient. Sometimes I wish there were a pause operation available. It's either just start or stop. And so you might be wondering, how do I even understand what I just heard? And yes, over time I've gotten adjusted and used to hearing speech at a much faster rate than most people can understand. This also has the interesting ability to do the following. Let's just zoom in over here. I sort of use a combination of zooming and text to speech. So we've got this option over here. Oh yes, I can change the person that's speaking. I've been with Samantha so long, I just stay with her. And for the speech rate, you can see I can change it to tortoise or hare, which is what these little symbols are, I guess. Now down over here, let me scroll, let me push this out a little bit, because even my wife always says it's too close, too big, which makes it hard for her to see. Anyway, I'm going to go over here. Let's see. Speaking announcements, fine. This is the one I want to show you. I'll put this on over here. So this is very interesting. So I don't use this, as you can tell. But so that's very good. Now you might be wondering, well, what about like third-party applications? Will it work? I can't tell you that. It probably does, but it's certainly going to work for all Apple-based products. Now I'm going to turn this on. Okay, I'll show you one other option here too. Again, this is not what I use, but just to give you a little touch of something that you probably don't know much about is
Capital H E O G here X X Y. Cap X to X Y.
okay. Now, what about if I wanted to hear the whole thing? I'm just going to highlight it like so.
Here's what I have to say.
All right, not bad. And that's a pretty good overview of the things that I use. Now, you notice I don't use dictation, and there's a whole lot of other things that I could use, but as I'm a very big proponent of only using the technology that you really need. And what do these technologies do? They provide alternatives for a person like me so that I can access and understand information in a way that I would not otherwise have been able to. Okay, so let me come back here. So let me just get back to this screen, and I'll just talk I just want to make a couple of notes and points here. One is that I noticed that when I tried to show the dark mode, it didn't record. So that was a problem. If you're wondering, it didn't work. It didn't record properly. Another one was when I said that you can't pause the speech output. I think I was incorrect. I think there is, you can pause it. You have to click on it. And I don't think there's a keystroke, but there's there's UI that you can click on to pause it, which, there should be a keystroke for everything that you can do with UI. And I think that's really about it. And the takeaway here is that I only use what I need. And I think, but the bigger point really is when it comes to accessibility, you always want to make sure that there's an equivalent alternative. So if I can't do something visually, I can do it auditory with audio. And that in my case, it's really a combination of zooming and audio output. It isn't just like one or the other. And that's the key, that it's very idiosyncratic. This is the way I do it. Somebody who has less vision than I do will probably use JAWS, a sophisticated screen reader. I don't use JAWS. Because I don't need to. All right. Now, what about some more things about, like, how do I do it? Well, I recognize patterns. So for example, learning HTML and using it is easy because it's a real predictable pattern like this. CSS, pretty predictable. As it turns out, I'm finding that theme JSON file is pretty good because it's pretty predictable. Although I'm not a developer, I'm always looking to learn new stuff and write about it and whatever. Okay, not so easy. Like JavaScript or PHP, okay, because it's expressive. It's all over the place. It's not as predictable. So I can't recognize patterns. Okay, so it's harder for me to deal with stuff like that. Okay, now what about teaching WordPress? Because after all, isn't this how do I use my low vision to help people, to help me teach WordPress? Which I must say parenthetically, that title is the reason why I got to speak at WordCamp Europe. That's a whole other story. All right. But for one thing is when I go into a class or I teach online or do anything, I can't wing it. All right. I just can't, although I once did, but it's not a good idea for me not to be prepared. So being prepared, I think, makes you a better teacher. You know where you're going to go. You know where you're going to start. You know where you're going, and you know where you're going to finish. And I think it provides a better presentation. This is true, for every class I ever taught, is that I knew when I came in at 6 o'clock at night, how I was going to start, what the middle was going to be like, what the end was going to be like. And I was prepared. And define everything. So I went to WordCamp Canada, and I forgot who it was who is doing exactly this. She got up and she said, this is what I'm wearing. This is what I look like. She was catering. She understood. And I said, wow, this is a whole new way of talking, presenting. This is what I look like. This is what I'm wearing. I'm standing over here at this part of the stage. those concepts are really good. Define everything. If you go into a museum, and like me, who has low vision, I want to go on a tour that defines what the artwork looks like, and everything that you can help describe is really description. When I say define everything, so that we know, we have a better understanding of what it is that we're being presented with. All right, another concept is grouping everything. This is like one of the core concepts of accessible design, really, is putting things together. That's why we have categories. That's why we have tags. That's why we have, well, it's not the reason, but it is a reason why you want to do these things. It's the reason why navigation is the way it is, because things are grouped. It's the way HTML works. So that is an important part of, like, when I taught, or when I don't really teach as much, but I would create material with the idea of grouping related information so that people could comprehend what I'm doing, or comprehend the material. That's the idea. And of course, I have to have patience, not just with my students, but with myself, because it's going to just take me a little longer to figure something out, to understand something. And it's easy to get frustrated, but it's more rewarding if I can give myself and others, show patience to others. And of course, I get by with a little help from my friends. So I'm not afraid. In fact, the older I get, the more unafraid I get to ask somebody for help. When I was much younger, I would never want people to know that I have I would not want to ask for help. It's not that I was afraid or ashamed. I wouldn't go up to somebody and say, hey, can you help me with this, sticking this card into the machine? Today, the problem I see with these cards is that every device is different. So do I tap this? Do I insert it? Do I do this? It drives me nuts. So that's all unpredictables, and that causes the problem. But anyway, I'm not afraid to ask, hey, can you help me with this kiosk? I don't understand how something works. And I think that's it. But I always have to get my first grandson into the picture here. He's much older now. He's about 4.5, no, he's about 3. He's about 4. Anyway, Low Vision is my very own app. And in fact, I have come to realize it's not just an app. Believe it or not, this will sound strange, but it's a gift. And of course, I would have never thought of that a long time ago, but I've come to realize it has opened doors. It has given me opportunities. It has made me think and do things that there is no way without this little gift I would have had the chance to do. For example, I probably wouldn't be here right now without this. So here's a little quiz, all right, or little things that speaking of, having it's not a quiz, but the 3 things that having visually impaired or being visually impaired is good. Okay, you can get to speak at WordCamp Europe. That I've said already. You don't see junk food in the grocery store. So everything's kind of blurry. So you're not tempted to buy all that junk food. And that's good. And of course, this is the best one of all. You don't see anybody getting old. So I don't see myself. I don't see anybody. I actually do. But it's not, I don't have like real refined detail in my vision unless I look at it really close up, like on a computer screen or something like that. So I tend not to see people getting older, which is nice. And last, I mentioned I am a new podcaster. So this is my little plug. It's totally free. So if you I have a podcast called Seriously Bud, and you can get it anywhere you get podcasts. Every Friday, I drop a new episode where I have an unexpected conversation with somebody in the WordPress community. It's not a tech talk. It's not about code. It's really not all that much about WordPress. It's about individual people's lives.